Уважаемые друзья, коллеги,
Dear friends, distinguished colleagues, it is my pleasure to see you again in St. Petersburg on the margin of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. We organize regular meetings in the frame of this forum. Nevertheless, the practice is that we used to have rather night meetings, late night meetings, and we finished even later. So now we are happy to have the chance to have a clear mind in order to have our meeting. It is my pleasure to see you all, to welcome you all here. Now I give the floor to Mr. Mikhailov to have an introductory speech, and then we will move on to our formal discussion. Distinguished Mr. Putin, distinguished colleagues, thank you very much. According to the tradition, let me try to fulfill the role of a moderator. It is the fourth time that we meet on the margin of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. Many of present colleagues here have come here before, previously, and each year we see new faces here, and it is my pleasure to welcome you here in St. Petersburg. I hope that this fresh blood will be a fruitful contribution to our meeting. After each and every meeting, Mr. Putin, it seemed that we have put all the points, dots on I's, but every year we are hopeful that we're going to have some innovative ideas. It has been the case today. What we see now is that despite our efforts and our initiatives, we see that politicians and media representatives try to practice rather anti-Russian rhetorics. Others also compare us to Daesh and to other terrorist organizations. In some cartoons, we even see that Russia is represented, is portrayed as a country that has waged a hybrid war. And of course, it is discouraging. It is a threat of instability. How do you think, how long this unfair attack on Russia will continue, and what do you think is necessary to do in order to fight against this aggressive rhetoric against Russia? That is my first question. First and foremost, I would like to dwell upon the root causes of this anti-Russian discourse. It is overwhelming coming from some countries. What are the reasons? To my mind, the main reason is that we are witnessing the multipolar world being established, and proponents of a monopolar world tend not to like it. And those who prefer a monopolar world always fight against this multipolar world. This situation is also due to the fight that Russia leads for its legitimate interests, and I stress it. That is the first reason. The second reason has to do with the fact that a certain time ago, some of our partners from countries and groups of countries started to try to ensure the practice of holding Russia and not letting it defend its interests. And they have been acting against the law. But now what they see is that this practice does not function at all. It is counterproductive, and it leads to a certain irritation. And they still want to defend their own interests, they want to aggravate the situation, and unfortunately, we do not give them any good reasons to do that, but they try to find it from nothing, from the thin air. How long will it last? I'm hopeful that it will not last long, it will not go forever, at least because they should understand that this practice is counterproductive and is harmful for everyone. It is harmful also for those who initiate this practice. And my understanding is that they are already starting to understand that, because we see some positive trends, and I am hopeful that it will persist in the future. So let us start with our colleagues. Last year, as you mentioned, we finished after midnight, and due to some bad weather conditions, our colleagues couldn't ask their questions. So for the first time, here we have the German representative of Information Media. It is my pleasure to welcome here Mr. Peter Kropsch, who is for the first time here in St. Petersburg. And last time he was here was in 1981 as member of the youth delegation in the frame of the German-Soviet Friendship Exchange program. And he is quite famous because he has the black belt, and you know it, and he said that in order to reach your level, another 50 years are required. So the floor is yours, Peter.
Also ich möchte mich da wirklich sehr herzlich bedanken, dass Sie sich die Zeit nehmen, dass wir heute in dieser Runde mit den Journalistenkollegen mit Ihnen sprechen können. Now I'm going to switch to English, that it's a little better, and I have a question concerning, we will have parliament elections in Germany this year, and what would you think in the sense of the relationship between Germany and Russia? Would you prefer to work with your partner, Chancellor Merkel, or could you imagine that with the Chancellor Schulz you could even make bigger progress? And maybe a second question, I know you answered that, but asking for your advice there. There are always kind of nervosities in Germany about the situation that it could be that some hackers, maybe also from Russia, could try to influence by leaking information or by false information this election process. Would you think that could be possible, and what would be your advice for Germany and the German officials?
Answering to the first part of your question, which refers to the relations with my partners, I'm talking about Germany. I have known Angela for a while. We have been working together. We do have some differences. Nevertheless, we have a lot in common, and mostly it refers to our economic interaction. By the way, when it comes to the international agenda, we also have a lot in common, but let me reiterate, we do have different approaches to solving problems. I practically do not know Mr. Schulz, but I know that this is a pragmatic personality. He has been in the international politics for a while, in the German politics, where he came back recently. We, and here I mean the whole Russian team, do not pay that much attention towards the person who we're going to deal with. The most important for us is to practice a constructive approach. We do not have any specific preferences here. I believe that should we and our partners focus not on our vested interests, but on fundamental interests of our peoples, of our nations, for sure we'll find conversion and the right approaches to cooperate, the efficient way to interact. I don't have any doubts at all on this issue, because once again we have lots of shared interests. Let's take the economic cooperation in different areas, and our interdependence in various areas has reached such a level that dozens, hundreds or thousands of jobs depend on this cooperation, both in Germany and in Russia. This is a paramount factor of our coexistence in today's world and in Europe in particular. German manufacturers benefit a lot from operating on the Russian market. It's not rocket science to understand that the Russian economy also has its interest in promoting technology cooperation, and it is worth mentioning that we have been applying lots of efforts. I'm not talking about the growth in our economic exchange, and I believe it was up to 40% this year. I'm not sure about the statistics, but anyway, it was a considerable growth. We have been developing quite a number of projects which contribute to the production of high-tech products and where the level of localization is very significant, up to 60 or 70%. Another example refers to automobile construction, manufacturing. Despite all political difficulties, no German company has left the Russian market. They're still up and running despite political and economic woes. I'm referring to the drop of production rate, the drop in the GDP and real income of the population owing to lower demand. Nevertheless, these companies are still there, and the government is striving to help them. It is a constructive work which is in the pipeline. For instance, Germany has abandoned the nuclear energy, and in the energy basket, the nuclear comes to a huge proportion, more than in Russia. And Germany is about to abandon, but they still need to find resources. What we see in Norway is that resources are very scarce. The UK also has scarce resources, which are about to go depleted. At the latest forum, we also discussed the prospect of the Yamal project, when we had up to 2.7 trillion cubic meters of gas. And we have recently discovered additional deposits of oil. It means that the deposits will be doubled. Over 4.2 trillion cubic meters of gas deposits have been discovered. Let us not forget about geographical proximity of Russia, about logistic expenses which are really lower. And of course, it leads us to a natural, to an efficient cooperation. It is the most cost-efficient energy, and this is a natural process. And let us not forget that I'm talking about long-term prospects. I'm talking about sustainable supply of energy resources. And what is of vital importance is that it helps to ensure the competitive advantage of Germany, because Germany will have a sustainable, cost-efficient energy resource. Historically, we have built very strong humanitarian relations with Germany. Despite the tragedy of two wars, the contacts between our nations have always been in place. Where am I leading? I hope that the new leadership of Germany will be able to understand the whole package of our efficient relations. And based on this, no matter who will lead Germany, the fundamental factor of our relations will still remain positive. Now coming to the second part of your question about hackers. Hackers can emerge anywhere. They can come from any country around the globe. Apparently, it is the general context of interstate relations. Hackers are liberal job representatives. If they wake up in the morning, they're in high spirits. They might have read a certain article, and if they are in the patriotic mood, then they start making their contribution the way they see it positive towards the Russian image. But in theory, it is possible. Nevertheless, I must stress that at the state level, we are never engaged into this kind of activity. That's the first point. The second point, I can imagine that someone might do it on purpose, builds a whole series of hacker attacks so that the source of this attack would be considered the Russian government. And of course, you can use high technologies, modern technologies, to create such a situation. But what is of vital importance is that it is my conviction that no hackers are capable of having a real influence on the German electoral campaign. No information has a direct impact on people's mind, nor on final results of the elections. So once again, at the state level, we are not engaged. We do not have any intentions to do that. On the contrary, we try to fight against these activities, these trends. It is my conviction, once again, that no hackers will be able to have an impact on the electoral campaign in any country, whether it's America or Asia.